I try to live minimally and intentionally, without overspending, but also without underspending on things that make me feel alive, inspired, and optimistic. I believe that money is just a token of our mental energy that needs the movement, needs exchange, needs dreaming, and the fulfillment of dreams after all. And if to think deeper, time is much more valuable than money. And I think that if people valued their time just as much as they value money, our world would be a somewhat different place, and in a good way different. In today's video, I'll share with you how I spend my money and time as a minimalist in 2024, because the biggest part of the year is gone and I have some insights to share. And also in the end of the video, I'll tell you about one interesting theory that can potentially explain why we don't do things that we actually want to do. And we'll also discuss one very thought-provoking comment from a viewer about minimalism, money, and time. So if this sounds interesting to you, let's chat. This year, the biggest expenses for Brian and me fall into three categories. It's housing, legal paperwork, and healthcare. Although our housing and utilities expenses reduced after we moved to the Republic of Georgia, other expenses are quite high. All this causes quite a lot of anxiety that I'm trying to tackle better, and that's why I'm allowing myself to live outside the circle of scarcity. I love going to see movies, I love eating out occasionally. Here in Tbilisi, I have my favorite ice cream shop, I have my favorite place to buy amazing sandwiches or bean pies. I also have my favorite shop with all things handmade, and I never leave it without buying at least one little thing. All this matters. I'm not extremely frugal because I do want to interact with this world, and one of the interaction channels is the financial one. I want the exchange and I want to benefit from this exchange. I willingly support independent artists, makers, and creatives of all kinds. I love buying from sustainable brands and from local businesses. I don't want to treat my finances from the position of fear, resistance, and scarcity, because I've been there for too long. This week we spent a few days in Armenia, the city of Yerevan, and those days of spontaneous vacation were wonderful. We could go just for 2 days to get one important thing done, but instead we decided to use the chance and experience more, still frugally, but fully. Armenia is the 10th country that Brian and I have been together to, by the way. Being generous with our time there was one of the best decisions lately. I've made a more detailed video on Patreon about our stay there, and if you're interested, the link will be down below. Getting from quantity to quality is about everything, really. I'd rather have fewer items in my wardrobe, but make sure that those are the most loved ones. I'd rather read fewer books, but enjoy each and every page of them. I'd rather eat smaller portions of food, but cook with quality, nutritious ingredients. Reducing the amount usually increases the joy because our brain perceives lessness as exclusivity and a treat. And here I want to address the overconsumption of content because it's all about how we spend our time resources. Recently, I've read one text from a blogger that I follow that made me wonder, what would happen if we perceived everyone who we read, watch, or listen to online as a teacher? than what those things that that person teaches us would be. Of course, we all value good entertainment, but fun can be not just for fun's sake. For example, children learn from playing and from entertainment, and even children's animation movies teach something. So think about it next time when you choose to spend 10 or 20 minutes of your life watching this or that video on YouTube, either from someone that you are subscribed to or from someone who was suggested to you by the algorithm, and ask yourself, what do you learn from them? I'm trying to stay a very picky content consumer. I have unsubscribed from a ton of YouTubers and I've subscribed to very few of them, but the ones that I've chosen I think can actually teach me something, and after watching their content I feel full and not empty. I feel inspired and not numb. I do feel that now the online space is taking our control away from us, control over what we read, watch, or listen to, and we much rarely do exploration journeys. We rarely do some thorough search and research and prefer to consume whatever we are fed on by the platforms like TikTok or Instagram or YouTube with YouTube Shorts. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you already know that I'm not a fan of extremes, because I do believe that one extreme almost inevitably pulls you to another extreme sooner or later. That's why I'm not throwing away my phone, I'm not deleting my apps. I still consume a lot of online media. I read, listen, and watch things, but I do filter a lot. I count my time and I value my time spent online, and I also don't binge, because binge watching or reading or listening prevents you from recognizing which content really spoke to you. It prevents you from properly digesting very important information that you've learned so that you could use it further on. There's always a lot of controversy when it comes to self-betterment and self-improvement, because there is a strong belief that it's rather a toxic approach to oneself when one is feeling forced to achieve more, to become more, to earn or own more, and to be as productive as one can. And while I absolutely don't support this toxic side of things, and I do agree that we are already enough, I still think that the concept of development and growth, or betterment if you wish, is very important. If the urge of growth was not so deeply ingrained in us, we would never learn how to stand or walk or speak. And also I wonder why we should think that this urge, and most importantly the potential, ever stops in us, is ever exhausted. I spend a lot of time on self-education. I learn how to treat my body with respect and care. I learn how to cope with stress and anxiety better, or how to tackle aging better, being a woman, or how to earn a living without burnouts and without compromising my moral values. I started this channel 3 years ago, and there was time when I kind of rested on laurels and didn't do anything to improve my videos. I used stock footage a lot because creating and filming my own scenes and intros seemed like such a huge fuss. But now I'm back to self-education in this sphere, and I'm trying to make the most with the equipment that I have. Now, of course, I don't own a good light. I use the light from my window, and it's often not very steady and consistent, and I don't have a lens that would give me more creative freedom. I don't have a good microphone that would fit my voice better, but I'm still trying and I do my best to learn. I do buy though. I pay for knowledge to other people. There's a ton of free educational content online, but there is a huge amount of knowledge that is worth buying. For example, I've recently bought a course on digital illustration from a wonderful Russian artist who I admire and get inspired by. I've been watching her free live streams and webinars a lot, or reading texts, and that's why it just felt right to buy a course from her to support and recognize her work. And I'm really looking forward to learning new things from that artist so that I can gain more creative freedom and not to depend on auxiliary design tools such as Canva, for example. If you know, a lot of creatives use that, but recently this tool has grown very unethical and I no longer want to support them. Also, what I've noticed, a very important thing to take into account is that we tend to treat more responsibly what we pay for and not what we get for free. This is how our brain is wired at the moment, because many of us tend to treat money as something more valuable than our time. Yeah, right now things are like this, fortunately or unfortunately. Let me know if you ever heard of the so-called crab bucket theory or crab bucket mentality or even crab mentality. It has a lot to do with the self-betterment and self-improvement thing. The theory was developed by psychologist John Royek when he noticed how crabs behave and act when they are put in a bucket. If several crabs are caught and put in the bucket, and one crab decides and tries to escape, the rest of the crabs try to pull him down, and in the end, no one gets out of the bucket. But if only one crab is caught and put in the bucket, most often the crab escapes successfully. This pattern can be observed in humans when we are told by our immediate surroundings not to risk, not to dream, to settle where we are and just enjoy the bucket, while we do want to risk. We want to dream and we want to see what's outside. Sometimes a bucket is just not enough for us, and it's fine. We are all different. And what I've understood about myself is that I'm willing to spend my money and time to see what is there outside the current bucket of mine. And now, as I promised, a comment from a viewer that was posted under one of my previous videos. And by the way, I read all of your comments and I try to respond or react to as many of them as I can at the moment. So here is a very thoughtful comment that was made. We always have this image of minimalism where people own very few things, but instead rely on sharing or using public or private services instead, like not owning a car or bike, but renting one or sharing. This almost always involves some form of organization skills, making appointments, communicating with others, compromising on privacy or personal space. Things that actually disturb the precious inner space we try to achieve by living minimally. This is so on point, right? Minimalism and spending is all about setting the right priorities for you. And for me, at the moment, saving at all sakes is not a priority. I want to live a life that I'm excited to live. Maybe spending more than an extremely frugal minimalist would spend, but acquiring experiences that in the end make me richer, emotionally and mentally. Or reading fewer books and watching fewer videos on self-betterment and productivity, but actually trying to figure out my own way of doing things and making the most of my time that I will live in this world. The most important thing to remember is that money is a renewable resource, while time is not. And I hope that this video brought you some support and inspiration in figuring out your own balance that works for you personally. It's not that we have so little time, but that we lose so much. The life we receive is not short, but we make it so. We are not ill-provided, but use what we have wastefully. Thank you so much for your time and attention, dear friends, and as always, big thanks, huge thanks to everyone who supports my work on Patreon and other tipping platforms, because it's only thanks to you that this channel exists. And for now, be safe and keep your heart open, and I will see you soon. Пока-пока!